It's Thursday, October 3rd. I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast. It is a hell of a day to talk ball, and I really, really mean it. I mean, I always mean it. It's always a hell of a day to talk ball. It's a hell of a day to get paid to talk football and do it on a podcast. I mean, I'm always grateful to do it, but I'm especially grateful to do it today because we have a very fun topic for the Fantasy Film Room. And joining me, as always, here in the Fantasy Film Room is the man, the myth, the legend, Nate Tice. Nate, what's going on, buddy?
Rookies. Yes. Finally talk about them. Bite my tongue for a week or so, just to like, hey, we got content coming later. Okay. So I'm just gonna keep my opinions for a while until we get a little more data set. So like you said, it is a hell of a day to talk ball. Always fun to check in on the rookies. So I'm very fired up for today's show.
Absolutely. And yeah, let's not waste a lot of time because we have a ton of rookies on the schedule to get to here. Just quick reminder for the new listeners, because there's always new listeners. Nate is always able to convince a few of his rabid fan base members to come over here to our humble little podcast. So a reminder to those folks who are new, in the first part of the show, Nate and I are going to take a trending fantasy topic and dive headfirst into it. And then in the second segment, Nate's going to have a topic that he's nerding out about. We are also going to do saying the quiet part out loud. And then we wrap, as always, with a TNF preview and maybe share some prop bets along the way. All of it's rookie themed. Hipster rookies from Nate is going to be the thing he's nerding out about. Saying the quiet part out loud. We have a couple of rookie themed ones. But for this first topic, yeah, it's a rookie check-in because this is a good time of the year to do this, Nate. We have 4 games in on these rookie quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Some of the positions certainly more beefier than others. So let's dive right into it and try to level set some expectations, what we've seen so far, what we can imagine going forward. And let's start at quarterback here. And let's start with Jayden Daniels, who has obviously been a revelation so far. The Commanders' offense is like a top 5 efficiency offense. Jayden Daniels leads rookies in both passing yards and rushing yards, 7 combined touchdowns. I know we talked a lot about the offense yesterday. Let's expand on some of those thoughts from what we've seen, both schematically, but also from Jayden Daniels himself. So I know we both liked, we maybe had some questions about some things, but so far, what have we seen from Jayden Daniels?
His positives have been they've been streamlined and highlighted so far, which is he's really fast and he's accurate. And that's what this offense is thriving with, is a lot of short intermediate balls. I'll definitely say short underneath throws. That's part of this offense. You call it the horizontal raid, which I love. But they're starting to push the ball a little bit more. We saw it in the Bengals game with the go balls. He tried a couple times against the Cardinals. One was intercepted, one was a PI. That's they're called 50-50 balls for a reason. But they're thriving in this offense right now. You can see he always had a mature handling. He was an older, 5th-year guy, played a lot of games, and jumping into Cliff Kingsbury's offense, which is a little more shorthand. It's easier to pick up and play, and he thrives in it right now. They go no huddle. He's signaling stuff. He's changing protection. So he's showing a lot of mental capabilities, which is more even as positive as all the physical stuff that he's shown so far, because usually that the drop off happens when the mental parts haven't caught up yet. But right now it's, you see his running ability, you see the rushing touchdowns. They're not using him a ton as a designed runner, maybe just several times a game, but most of those rushing yards are with scrambles. And that is the double-edged sword with Daniels, is that he is looking to scramble. Like, he is a one and done read. I just said how smart he is, but he kind of knows, how he runs like a 4.38 or a 4.4 flat. He knows that. So rather than a lot of times, if he thinks he'll go to the right read a lot of times, then he looks for a scrambling lane. And right now, against bad defenses, that's always going to work because there's not a lot of speed to catch up with him. He's a smart scrambler. He's gotten better about taking hits. I would say he's only taken a couple bad ones as opposed to college. He makes a big deal whenever he slides or goes out of bounds. He always makes sure to look at like Cliff and Dan Quinn on the sideline. Like, yeah, you see me go down. And it's pretty funny, actually. It's been a pretty funny bit. But this is the perfect offense for him. He, again, like I said, he's thriving in it. I will say that I would like to see him throw the ball more. And that's a question I had about him in college, because it gets harder in the NFL. He looks to scramble first. I would like to see that balance a little bit more, where he's breaking contained and then throwing the ball. He's done it a little bit. He's had some nice moments each game. Just would like to see it a little bit more. I brought the stat up on Football 301 yesterday to you, but he has the highest scramble rate and the most scrambles through the first 4 weeks of the season on record, according to Next Gen Stats.
Jeez.
That's just it's just he might be able to do it, but it would be a super outlier. All the quarterbacks that had those high rates, the Fields, the Lamars of the world, even Hurts, Daniel Jones always had high scramble rates as well. Russell Wilson, they always kind of, as they got older, it lowered. And so I would like to see him, who scrambles so much. He scrambled a ton in college. He had the highest scramble rate. He had more scrambles in True Media's database than anyone else by more than 100 scrambles in his career. He's going to scramble. He's going to run. For fantasy, that's great. In real football terms and long-termness, I'm using that word, long-term viability, I still would like to see him, continue to go 1 to 2 to 3. Some plays he is good at it, but not all of them yet. So that's where you still see some rookiness with him. But you can't ask for anything more. This is ideal. I think more what he'll look like is maybe week 1 and 2, where against maybe those better defenses, I will consider the Giants as more of average-ish. So I want to see it this next couple of weeks, but against the Browns and Ravens, but this is everything you could hope for. He doesn't make mistakes. He's accurate and he's fast. That is viable in the NFL. I just want to see him throw a little bit more. And then I'm like really coming around. I'm like, how high he can kind of reach in the quarterback rankings.
I think to kind of sum up everything you just said, which is mostly I agree with it, is that I feel like for the rest of the season, the only real question is what can he do against better defenses, which we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. Cleveland, Baltimore, that is about far apart on the scale of defensive qualities to what he just saw the last couple of weeks, which was Cincinnati and Arizona, which not intimidating stop units at all. No. So I am interested just to see what he can do against better defenses, but I feel like most of the questions about, and that's more of like the offense overall than Daniels himself. I think that from a individual player perspective, I feel like the only questions about him, Jayden Daniels, is just like long-term stuff, as you mentioned. Can he develop into that, go through my progressions, sit in the pocket for the rest of the year? I mean, what you're getting out of him, certainly from a fantasy perspective, I think you're going to continue to get out of him. I think you're going to continue to see him run a lot. You're going to continue to see him be like a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I think from a rest of season rankings perspective, like, man, Scott Pianowski summed this up so well that what Anthony Richardson was sort of hyped up to be in fantasy, like Jayden Daniels is actually going to be that guy. Like after Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, like I think Jayden Daniels is probably the 4th quarterback that I'd want rest of season. So you're going to continue to get that. I'm curious about the development of the pass catchers in the rest of the offense. The last 2 weeks, obviously Daniels has completed 88.7% of his throws, which is just ridiculous. 9.19 yards per attempt. Terry McLaurin's come alive. He owns a 61.5% of the air yards in the last 2 weeks, which is great. That should be the case. McLaurin's gone from a guy that after week 1, I was nervous about how quickly are going to be putting him in the coping corner on the Panic Meter show. And now I feel like great about him. I feel like this is Terry's new lease on life with Jayden Daniels here. I'd love to see more Luke McCaffrey. We've been getting more Noah Brown in this offense, which I think makes sense for some of those more intermediate bender routes, like in breaking stuff. So
because he's a body,
he's a big dude, like that sort of discussion we had last week about big dudes against zone coverage, that can be Noah Brown. But I would love to see Luke McCaffrey, whose ADOT has come up as well the last 2 weeks too.
He and Daniels' best throw as a pro so far came late against the Cardinals. And you can see he's comfortable with the play. It's Y cross, which is everyone runs, but especially an air raid offense. And that is, and it was Luke McCaffrey on the over, which is the cross and that terminology. Sorry, this is just a football thing. We call it Y cross and it's really F cross. And that's what cracks me up so much. But anyways, he goes across and Daniels progressed on it. 1, 2, 3, stay in the pocket, kind of a little straddle step. Didn't really have to, but whatever. Puts it right on the money to McCaffrey. And that's where you saw McCaffrey's strengths because he has such good hands. And he extended out and snagged it. And yeah, I agree with you that can become a nice safety blanket for him. McCaffrey can. And I think they might build up some chemistry. But yeah, Terry, I have Terry stock in Dynasty Leagues, and I went 50-50 on it. I sold him in half and kept him in the other half. So I'm like, whatever.
Good hedge.
Yeah, it was a good hedge. I think I have it in 3, and I sold him in 2 and kept him in 1. And I was like, this is just in case. But but I think Terry's going to eat in this offense, especially if they move him around. There's going to be a bunch of receptions in this offense. Like, I think I still, and why I keep bringing up the Bucs game, I know it's week 1 with a rookie, that felt more real to me of how the flow of this offense was in week 2 than maybe the last 2 weeks when they played two of the worst defenses where they're kind of having their way. So that felt more like that week 2 workload with Terry, where it's like he's going to get a bunch of easy catches. They're going to be a lot more stop routes, quick things, as opposed to maybe more go balls that they'll catch once a game. So that's kind of how I feel. So I feel like the Terry stuff's real, long story short.
Yeah, he'll be a little boom busty, but that's basically the case for every wide receiver. And man, I mean, just Jayden Daniels, I will say, just has a really impressive arm and like great ball placement. So I feel like once he does figure out that timing and 1 to 2 to 3, as you say, I think he's going to be just a great quarterback for a long time. So I feel great. I mean, shoot, if I was a Commanders fan, I'd be in Nate Tice's mentions talk right now too, which I know they are. Like, how dare you say anything other than he's a future Hall of Famer?
Oh man, I know a guy that I said, oh yeah, I'd totally take him the first round. I like him, all these things, and then it's just like all they focus on. It was like, hey, this I gotta say this. When a guy gets taken top 5 or top 10, I'm going to pick at every wart they have. And Daniels had a lot of red flags, but the thing was he was a different animal than those other guys that were, maybe the red flags were, because he is smart. It's just funny. He's smart. He throws well, but it's all the time. He's like, yeah, I also run a 4.38. Like, so that's why I, as a quarterback that ran a 5 flat, it's kind of me trying to like figure out what is the chemistry of it. How much do you scramble? Every quarterback figures it out. Right now, he's figuring it out, but it's also the highest scramble rate possible. So that's why I'm like, okay, maybe it is sustainable for this guy. But again, I just got to see it. Got to see it for a whole season. But man, it's as good as it could be through 4 weeks.
Let's talk about the guy who went ahead of Jayden Daniels. Caleb Williams obviously went first overall to the Chicago Bears. And I mean, just the bottom line is the results have not been pretty right now for the Bears offense as a whole. And certainly Caleb Williams from a statistical perspective, just in terms of overall stats, he's at not a great place. Not a great place for old Caleb Williams. 3 touchdowns, 4 picks. Really hasn't offered anything as a rusher. So from a fantasy perspective, he has been a guy that people did draft pretty aggressively, and I mean, he's just been completely dropped. There's a lot of guys that are disappointing in this offense from a fantasy perspective too. So I think the key question here, Nate, is how much of what has gone wrong, because a lot has gone wrong, how much of that is like, do you place the pie of blame? How big of a slice does Caleb Williams have to take out versus everything else that's gone on here?
I would say 10-15%. Maybe some of the Texans game, God, when they both play in domes, it always messes with my brain, because that's how I remember games. It was Texans or Colts, but he threw a couple picks where he was trying stuff, and that was Texans. He was trying things, and that's what rookies have to do, rookie quarterbacks especially. What can I get away with? Like, what can I push here? Daniels right now is doing that with his legs. All right, can I scramble here? Oh, I can. That's another first down. Caleb's trying it with his arm, and I think there's a misconception with how Caleb Williams plays because of the highlights that we saw in college and him running around, scrambling around, and it was scrambling to throw. He's a effective runner. You got to think of his running, and I don't want to compare him because he does actually have some similarities, but it's like Rodgers, like when he was with Green Bay. It's effective running. It's 3 carries for 3 first downs, but might only go for 12 yards. Mm-hmm. It's not a bunch of scrambles that pick up a bunch of yards and get touchdowns. He might get a touchdown in the red zone because, again, he's an effective runner. But I think as a thrower and mentally, I've been impressed with him mentally, which I was excited about because I saw some glimpses of it at USC. But he is mature beyond his years, like as far as how much he handles in the offense. Daniels too. So I do want to mention that. But with Caleb, he handles protections. He handles total audibles. And a difference between an audible and like a check or a kill is a check or kill is the quarterback gets it, or an alert, gets 2 plays in the headset. He has 2 plays to pick from based on the look. An audible is a full-blown, hey, changing play. The coach did not give this to me, but we see a look and we're going to attack it. A rookie quarterback doing that on the road, and I've seen Caleb do it at least 2 times, that I don't see vets do that. I've seen guys getting paid $200+ million that don't have this handle on their offenses. I'm not going to name names, but one of them's struggling right now. But I think mentally, that's why I'm so optimistic about him. And then watching him against the Rams, The Rams defense is actually playing a little bit better than maybe I gave him credit for, but I'm watching him against the Rams and he is trying to be a pocket passer. He's like, nope, I'm reading stuff out. He did it. It was almost comical. I had a good meme, but I realized I didn't want to get fired, so I didn't put it. But he was like, he just stands in the pocket and just everything's coming around him. And he's like, no, I'm staying in here and I'm progressing, I'm getting rid of the ball, even if it was the tiniest pocket possible. So even if the stats haven't been there yet, his play has been really positive. He doesn't make mistakes, even if he had those interceptions, because that was him trying stuff and pushing it and ad-libbing. But in structure, he hasn't made any mistakes, at least mentally. He goes to the right spots. He goes to the right places. His eyes are always going to the right spots. He's checking the ball down. So this dude's got rare arm talent. That Rams game has me pretty giddy about a couple of the throws, and that was the one they asked the least out of him. But that was cool. He had 3 throws in that game that were like, with the wind, I think people underestimate the wind that was happening in Chicago. Like he's doing some really cool things right now, even if the stats aren't there. Enough touches to DeAndre Swift, get him out of there. It's done.
It's coming off his best game.
He can't hit a hole. He missed 3 holes in the first 2 drives, and I'm screaming. I was going to tweet it, and I was like, I'm not going to be mean, but Roschon Johnson, even if he's not the sexiest back, is more an efficient back, is actually doing the right things, and they trust him better in protection. So hint, go after Roschon Johnson if he's available for anybody. But this offense, I look up success rate and explosive play rate, and I combine them. I used to call it OPS, but people are saying I should call it sex rate. So the Bears on first and second down are the worst team in the NFL in sex rate. They're 39.9%. 31st is the Giants, who you expect. 30th is Steelers, because they're not getting a lot of explosives. 29th is Cleveland. 28th is the Jets. 27th is the Broncos. So it's all these teams that we laugh at their offenses. The Bears are even worse on first and second down. And I attribute that to a lot to the run game and the inefficiencies in the run game. They're getting there, though. So I think the Bears are ascending and Caleb is ascending. Even if this, again, 40th time I'm saying this, even if the stats aren't there, his play is as positive as you can hope for because he is not mentally overwhelmed. In fact, I think he's excelling mentally, which is really, really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree with you that the process of what's going on here looks pretty good from a Caleb Williams standpoint. Like I think he's
not a Shane Waldron.
No. Yeah. And that was going to be my next point is that do you ever sometimes think, Nate, like, Waldron has been a disaster so far. And like, I kind of think they've just got way too much going on here in this offense.
Too many ideas.
Like
that is it. You nailed it. Too many ideas. Too much stuff.
Too many ideas. Too much on the rookie quarterback's plate, I think. Like, and then also
it's a lot.
Too many players in here that are just not net positive players. And I come back to, and man,
that's a great point.
I hate that I continue to be the like bag on Keenan Allen guy. But it does not
agree with you.
It doesn't look good. He's also dealing with like a heel injury for 2 years now. And he said after the game, he doesn't feel 100% right. It's just and then you come back in here and he's running the second most routes on the team in week 4. And Rome Odunze's got a knee injury. And he's got a knee injury and a hip injury. Like he's dealing with stuff. So, and I think Rome's been good. You and I have talked about this. Like we can just, we're not going to do it. We don't have to do a full breakdown on Rome because I think both of us can just say in this section, like he looks good when he's healthy and when the offense figures itself out. If the offense figures itself out,
he's winning routes. It's not like he's not. He looks good. It's just
he looks
not there.
He looks great as a route runner. The production is. We knew the production was not going to be there. That's why he wasn't drafted in the same range as like in fantasy in like Marvin Harrison or even Malik Nabers. You know, he was probably taken right around or maybe even after Brian Thomas Jr. in some places. I think I had Brian Thomas Jr. ranked ahead of him, even though I thought Rome Odunze was a better player.
Right.
You know, so like I think Rome's going to be fine. He's definitely somebody like if anyone's panicking, they should not be. He'll have his moments. The problem is like again, we've got dudes like this version of Keenan Allen. We've thankfully kind of moved away from the Cole Kmet the Gerald Everett stuff, but you've only 4 routes this last week, but he's a great example
he's exactly
of this.
what you're talking about. Yep.
People know who he is, and they're like designing plays for running backs and like tight ends running routes from the backfield. It's just like, it's a mess, man. I think that this Bears offense, like hopefully the only thing that you could tell yourself is they have a bye in weeks. They play the damn Panthers and then the Jags, 2 pretty messy defenses here in the next couple of weeks. Then they go into their bye in week 7. hopefully that would be a moment for Shane Waldron to like take a look at some things. And that's when teams typically do this stuff. And then they get the Commanders and then they get the Cardinals those 2 weeks after the bye. So definitely a favorable schedule. And hopefully this is a moment for the Bears to do a little self-scouting, because I think they have like a lot of things they need to look in the mirror about.
That's a great point. I mean, a lot of great points with it, because Shane Waldron's the classic, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Great.
Like,
yeah,
just
great
because
way to say it.
just because your quarterback can handle all this stuff doesn't mean you should just pile on. And or just because you have, I know the idea of Gerald Everett is going to get so many coaches fired, because
it's already
everybody goes,
Shane Waldron's already been let go by the Seahawks when he had Gerald Everett.
It's like they stare at the 40 time and they're like, oh, we could do this with them. We could do this with them. And it's like the idea is better than the action. They have him at fullback.
Yeah,
you never want to see
a
guy in the backfield wearing number 14 as a lead blocker. Like that's not winning football. You mentioned Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's going into Shane Waldron as a team leader, and Cole Kmet on the first 5 plays had 4 botches. So I bet to tweet that one out too. But then I think it's just too many ideas. That's what Waldron sees. So I think that's a great idea, or a great point to bring up, is that they need a bye week to maybe just trim the fat. That's what the Rams game felt more like, is that they trimmed some fat with all their ideas and stuff. And that's why it felt a little bit better, I think, overall. God, that game was a lot of fun to rewatch, with Stafford and Caleb just throwing dime after dime and in the wind. But I think this offense they're not as bad as they looked against the Texans. Like, it's actually, I was more optimistic against the Rams, and I think maybe they're learning some lessons. But again, we're talking about Caleb. Yeah, he's fine. He's going to be a good player, even if the stats might not be there his rookie year.
Real quick, any Bo Nix thoughts? He's definitely not somebody we need to spend a ton of time on, because he's not really like a fantasy option. There really are no fantasy options in that offense in general. But any quick just kind of thoughts on Bo Nix?
Oh, I was looking at how many fab bucks Sutton was going to cost me with my Rashee Rice injury. What
a sentence!
My super team just got decimated this last week. But Nix, it's just, God, I don't want to damn a guy after 4 games, but it's just the signs right now are not positive. Mm-hmm. But that's how they have to win games. How they beat the Jets. Their defense rocks.
Yeah,
that might be the best defense. That's a top 5 defense at the very least, maybe better. And their run game's coming around. They're figuring some stuff out. It's just that he can't push the ball. Like, that was bad weather game, but you don't get drafted in the first round to go like, oh, it's bad weather. Oh, well, you're going to play in Kansas City every single year. You know, you play in Denver. You're going to play on the road all the time. Who else is in the AFC? Pittsburgh, New England, Buffalo. So that means anytime Baltimore, anytime you play Cleveland, Cincinnati, like, oh yeah, sorry, I can't handle weather. But that's why I'm if you can't tell, I'm pretty low on Bo Nix. And right now, I do think they're trying to trim stuff out. Like, they're not using a lot of motions and shifting to maybe help him out, because I think he was just getting overwhelmed. But then you're just handicapping the offense too when you do that. But this looks like a rookie quarterback, but not one that should have been drafted in the first round. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Running backs, there's actually really no one kind of going off here. We're going to talk about Bucky Irving when we preview Thursday night Bucks at Falcons, because he's kind of the biggest. I mean, he's second in terms of rushing yards behind Jayden Daniels among rookies.
That's so funny. Sorry.
Well,
leader in rushing and passing.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff there. Again, I get why the Commanders fans are coming for you, buddy, just because I get it. This is their time. Fast version of a former Pro Bowler is just not enough. It's all, and that was the thing. Who my Drew Brees comparison was Caleb Williams coming out of college, and now they're like, well, Jane Daniels is Drew Brees. Have you not seen his completion percentage? I'm like, oh man, they don't play anything alike. I'm sorry, guys. Hey, Sam Bradford had like a legendary completion percentage season once. Maybe you can say fast Sam Bradford, and that would really light people's fire.
Oh man, poor Sam Bradford.
Don't say that.
I know, poor Sam Bradford. All I can picture is his loose jersey sleeves. He always had that. You remember?
I know.
Big loose jersey.
Garrett Wilson is wearing them now for whatever reason, and I'm like, hey, dude, you gotta tie those things up. That is not.
It doesn't.
It's not great.
When you're that skinny, it just. I know. Rodgers pulls it off. He's a quarterback. That's and I don't know. But then isn't Sauce wearing them too? Sauce Gardner's wearing the loose sleeves too.
I haven't noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. I'm sorry, guys.
Not great for the skinny bros.
Again, me and you commenting on fashion and style. That's what the spot is now.
I actually have a funny like Garrett Wilson made me feel really old story that I will not tell on the podcast because it embarrasses me, but I'll tell you later. Like literally the player I'm saying like, yeah, you got to roll them sleeves up, buddy. Yeah, funny story. I'll save it for a different time. Okay, rookie running backs. Again, really Braylon Allen is the only guy who's kind of popped off here, and I think we've talked about Braylon Allen before, and I know he's kind of become a bit of a thorn in Breece Hall's fantasy manager's side, but he's like a legit explosive player for them.
He's good. It's very real. He looks even faster than in college. I would say the yardage that happened in the game against the Broncos, again, Broncos have a good defense, but it was just the classic, when Breece is in there, someone botches a block, Braylon goes in there and the blocking's perfect. Like it's just one of those situations where it's not like anything's happened to Breece. I just think Braylon has earned these touches. So which again, frustrating for fantasy, good for Jets team and Jets fans. It's just that I think that's going to turn into more of a 60-40 or 65-35 split for those two because Braylon Allen's just like earned them. Like he looks great. I mean, he had a couple cuts. This is a good example. So like Breece Hall ran a zone play against the Broncos. The cut on the zone was he had to go all the way behind the left tackle. So he's going right. He had a cut, go behind it. He gets there about a half second late. Boom, boom, goes for like a 1 yard gain or a 0 yard gain. Same exact blocking, same exact situation happens for Braylon. I'm sure they were on the sideline talking about it. Like, hey, if we get this zone look again, make sure you cut up. That's, a good running back coach would do. And Braylon gets in there, boom, plants his foot and cuts and gets like 7 or 8 yards. And so it's kind of like he benefited from Breece's like negative play because of just the situation that happened. That's how it flows sometimes for running backs. Usually doesn't feel that drastic because the backup is not talented. And Allen is very talented and very young and very big and very fast, and still don't understand how he went on day 3, but I'm just going to leave it at that. He's good though. Carson Steele, stop fumbling. Only other rookie running back is like Ray Davis, who looks solid. He looks exactly how I pictured him in that Bills offense. But that's going to be a split with him and James Cook. And
even like Ty Johnson gets in the mix there too. So
great call.
I think that's going to, it would be great. Like, to say Ray Davis is an excellent bench hold, and I think he is, but if anything ever happened to James Cook, which knock on wood, hope it doesn't, Ty Johnson would probably still be involved there. But I agree. He looks like the type of player that once we get later in the season, you're going to want to have stashed on your bench just in case. But yeah, Breece Hall, man, the snap share has gone down for 4 straight weeks, 82%, 72%, 71, 69. And that is just because
feels right.
Braylon Allen is the guy that deserves some work here. But again, we'll talk Bucky Irving in the TNF preview. Yep. Let's get into wide receivers.
They're doing. I'm sorry, real quick. One last little tidbit with those two. They are doing pony personnel, which is they put both on the field. So again, that speaks to Braylon more than it speaks to Breece Hall. I know. So yeah,
different offense coordinator, obviously, but they used to do that with Breece Hall and Michael Carter when LaFleur was the offensive coordinator there. The other LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, was the offensive coordinator there. So obviously, it is the same head coach. And man, let me tell you what, them plays got a lot more juice to it now that Braylon Allen is playing the Michael Carter role.
Well, remember LaFleur and it must have been Hackett did it. They did it with those backs in Green Bay too, with Jones. And so they're like, oh shoot, let's dust off another thing from the 2019 Packers playbook. That's that or 2020 Packers playbook. That's exactly what it looks like right now.
All right, let's get into wide receivers here, Nate. And we'll start with Malik Nabers, who has a concussion right now because I think the Giants are testing the theory of like, it's like, if your fantasy running back has 350 something touches the year previous, don't draft him this year unless his name is Derrick Henry. Don't draft him the next year because it's like over workload. I think the Giants are going to test that theory at the wide receiver position with Malik Nabers because it's just been I've been saying that they're not even really running an NFL offense. They're running a Malik Nabers fantasy usage scam over there in New York. But I do think some of the production is a little bit empty calories for Malik Nabers just because great, he's leading the NFL in targets and the offense still stinks out loud because they don't have any other threats, which is why he's getting like 18 target games and things like that. But he's a great player. I guess my question to you is just from what you've seen from him individually so far, forget like the production and all that stuff. How high can this guy fly in terms of like NFL receiver rankings?
Oh, he has legit what you call tier 1, like ability.
Totally.
Like I think that, he's one of the most explosive players already, explosive receivers. His route running, I think he's just going to be one of these guys that is going to be a little loose with the routes. He's a little, the details aren't great with his route running, but he's a guy that you're okay with that because once you get the ball in his hands, you can just watch him go. Again, it's just going to be based on who's getting him the ball. But as far as like Dable's got the Randy ratio going for him, like it's just that every passing play is going through him, which again is good for fantasy and everything. I think real life football though, it's matching. He's deserving these touches. Like he is. Totally. He's hard to keep up with. He can attack vertically. He's dangerous with the ball in his hands. He does have drop issues, which you brought up last week, and then he had another drop Thursday night. And I think that's going to be him, especially over the middle. Like he's always looking to run. He kind of is a body catcher over the middle, but then on the sideline, he'll just snag things one-handed and do all these crazy things. It's the weird. There's certain guys who are just like that. Like it's just body. Maybe he has long arms. I actually got to remember. Longer arm guys usually have that issue with body throws. I think his is he just gets too excited. But that was a thing in college. I think it's going to be a thing with him in the pros. But that's his biggest blemish. But he's real. He has as much upside as any of the rookie guys, which we knew going in. That's why some teams had him as receiver 1. It makes a lot of sense. He's just going to lack a little refinement. Maybe picks up on it. A lot of guys do.
Sure.
But he's real. He's very real. That's the best way I could put it. Is this guy is talented, he's explosive, and he is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, from a rest of season fantasy rankings perspective, he's like a easy top 10 guy, and like you could argue with me that he's top 5. I'm fine with that. Like he just because of how good he is and because of the volume he's going to get, even if some of the volume, like I said, is a little bit empty calories just because the offense stinks. I'm still like he's going to do so much with it. Like it's just when the only thing I ever like push back on is when we're starting to compare a dude like him to Justin Jefferson. I'm like,
no.
I'm gonna need more than 4 games to do that.
I am too.
And 2, when we start to compare a guy like this from a production standpoint, it's like, wow, he's just so far ahead from some of these other guys drafted this year or even drafted in the last few years. It's just like I wish that some of these guys that people are really down on right now for just relative to expectations could get like just 4 cheapy flat route catches every single game, which Malik Nabers is going to get in this offense.
I might give this to Colin, the route chart, producer Colin, just the route chart, because just a post on YouTube as we're talking right now, because it's his route chart's hilarious.
It is.
It's
hilarious.
like it's so many just little quick 2 yard, 5 yard, 4 yard, 2 yard, 5 yard, 4 yard. Just everything is not. There's just a blockage at the 5 yard line but they're trying to get the ball in his hands. They don't trust Daniel Jones to read things out. So this is what they do. Bunch of choice routes. So it's almost like he has like the route tree of Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, like totally. I know that's what I'm saying. Like when we're and this is just totally not helpful to this conversation. It's just
I know
like,
it's nothing against him, but
what sticks in my craw and like grinds my gears, old man stuff is just when we're talking about receivers and comparing receivers, and we're not talking about like route deployment and like the route trees and stuff like that. With any metric, it does grind my gears a little bit. But Malik Nabers is a great player, and he could finish as if he was in a good offense, he could walk away with being the most productive receiver in the NFL. And shoot, he might walk away with it in this offense this year, which is crazy. Okay, let's move to the second receiver in terms of second leading rookie receiver in terms of yardage, which is Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville is second among, like I said, rookies in receiving yards right now. He has 275 on 17 catches and 2 touchdowns. I know, Nate, we both liked Brian Thomas, but I think we share the same sentiment, which is as much as we liked him, we're pretty impressed with what he's done so far.
One of the most impressive rookies for how early he's doing the more polished things. I thought he would be a second half kind of guy, and first half it would be a lot of why aren't we getting anything out of Brian Thomas? There's a lot of things I thought about this Jags team, and come on, like negative and good, but even the good's just been different than how I expected. He is more polished than I was expecting. He's got actual juice. He might be one of the fastest receivers in the game right now at 6'4", 210, which is absurd. He has his route tree is expanding quicker. I'm trying to figure out the way to verbalize this, because you would agree with that too, right? At LSU, it was not a very expansive route tree.
Go routes and curls and slants, but mostly goes and curls. They've gotten him much more on dig
Way
routes
more.
and post routes, and then he had a route towards the sideline last week too that probably could, if Trevor had put this on him, could have been a big touchdown. But still, I mean his route tree is very, very different than college.
And then on the deep balls too, his tracking has been really good, and which I wasn't sure about, because a lot of it was slot fades in college, which was plenty of jokes about the LSU offense, Jayden Daniels and these guys, and Nabers. And so that wasn't like a post where it's like, okay, a safety's coming at him. How does he track that? And right away, he's shown that he can do it, which is huge. That opens up so much for the offense. And that's probably why I think too, is that they're trying to throw the deep ball to Jaguars offense, but I mean there's just so much wrong with it. But anyways, but he's a reason why I've been very impressed by his polish. I think that's the best way to put it. Press doesn't bug him, at least it seems to eye test. It doesn't. Yeah, he beats it with quickness. He beats it, and he's big too, which helps too. But he can win with quickness, which is huge. He's got great feet for how big he is. I'm huge 2 thumbs up on Brian Thomas Jr. I really liked him, but he is already at what I thought he would look like year 2.
Yeah.
And so he's ahead of schedule. And another guy with star potential, and which is pretty good for what's been going on in Jacksonville.
100%. Yeah. The way I viewed this draft class is that the top 3 were all tier 1 prospects, from Harrison to Nabers to Odunze. And then there was kind of Brian Thomas in no man's land is a clear first round graded receiver. Yeah. And then it was kind of everybody else is late 1, early 2, whatever. And then kind of on and on and on. But so he's looked like that though. He has, I would say he hasn't quite looked as good as the top 3 guys, but that's no shade against him. No. I say every year there's a prospect I compare to Martavis Bryant, and kind of on that axis of Martavis Bryant, Christian Watson, Quentin Johnston, and Brian Thomas is he was that guy this year, and he was actualized. He's become the actualized version of that player, which is great to see. So wheels up for sure for Brian Thomas. Very excited about him. Let's talk about Marvin Harrison. Obviously, the first drafted receiver here, 4th overall pick. We've actually talked a lot about Marvin Harrison here, Nate, and I guess the one thing I want to kind of pull on a thread you threw out last week, which was, we both love the player. I think we've both loved the film so far. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think the separation's been great. The explosiveness out of cuts has been great. Any nonsense about max speed, all that. We pushed back hard on that after week 1, and I think we've been proven correct.
Yes, especially the first quarter of week 2 made us look really smart.
Exactly correct. I saw you retweeted your post
right away
about that immediately. Smart man. But my question to you is what you said last week about Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison's sort of connection and chemistry and timing. I think that has actually probably been in a weird way, encouraging that Kyler goes to him so much, but they're a little off. Is it more of a Harrison thing? Is it more of a Murray thing, or something else in the offense?
I think they're going to force feed it until it works. So I don't know what is off with it. I think Kyler at times will throw it to him even when Marvin's going oh, okay. I'm shoot, you're throwing my way. Okay, sure. All right. Oh, shoot. All right. Let me adjust for it. And again, I think I said this last week, is that long-term, that's good. This is going to be a good thing long-term. Right now, I think they're still working out. I thought it was a little better this last week. I haven't watched the second half yet of that side of the ball, I should say. But I think
just for when you do, I think it is interesting. I've noticed that the Cardinals start hot in games, and for whatever reason, it fades.
4 for 4.
It fades. So that I don't know if there is something to that, but that's just one thing I've noticed.
I know. Drew Petzing might be an opening script merchant. I'm keeping an eye on it. I always check out these guys once they get off those, middle of the second quarter. Why does this feel weird? Why are they stalling so much? Yeah. So it's something I got to keep on. They missed Trey McBride last week.
That's
that McBride's the number 2. Michael Wilson's a fine player, but McBride is the number 2 in that offense, and they really balance each other well. McBride and Harrison. I'm still optimistic on the offense and everything. That game was weird. They got a couple fourth downs they didn't get. Washington got like an early PI that helped them blow the door open on some stuff. They kept converting on third down. So it's kind of a weird game script, at least in week 4. As Marvin Harrison Jr., though, as a player, yeah, he's everything I thought he would be. I mean, supreme route runner, big size, has a feel like him in the red zone. That his first career touchdown, that one in the back of the end zone, but even other routes too. He just has that feel. Like he's going to catch a lot of touchdowns in his career because it's something. That's a receiver stat as much as an offense stat is just, can you win in the red zone, which usually means feel. Can you win a jump ball? Like, how are your hands? Like Tyler Lockett can catch touchdowns in the red zone because he can adjust so well. Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody kind of has their different ways. He is going to be like, he's going to get those. And I just think right now they're just like going like, okay, is this something we're majoring in our offense? Okay, we'll put that on the back burner. Oh, this is a good play. This is a good pass play. You have comfort with that. So I think there's just a little bit of 50-50 variance going on, bad for them, where I think maybe it'll pick up as the season goes along. But Harrison Jr. is everything. These receivers, Brian Thomas has been better. I was still high on him, just like you said. But Harrison Jr., Dunze and Spurts, and Nabers have been exactly kind of how I pictured them.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir to you, but it's just kind of fun to see that their games translated so nicely to the NFL level in their first month as pros. But that's how Harrison Jr. has been. He looks the part.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the wide receiver 9 in fantasy so far. Despite that 1 catch for 4-yard debut, he's been targeted on just under 30% of his routes in weeks 2 to 4. He has 38.9% of the team yards, and he has like just under 60% catch rate. There's going to be some volatility, by the way, when you run your offense through a rookie wide receiver. That like what we just said about Malik Nabers' route chart is not what we're going to say. But like Marvin Harrison Jr. is running a real deal, big boy, number 1
Old
X receiver route chart.
Yes.
So, that there's going to be some volatility there naturally. But yeah, bottom line, like I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's a 2006 offense with a 2006 X receiver. That's how the Cardinals feel. Bunch of tight ends out there, just 2 big receivers, Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. You got to run the full route tree, and we're not moving you. You're on the ball getting pressed, and he can win. So that's good. That's a good thing, people.
Yeah, if he couldn't win, this offense would be sinking right now. So yeah, I mean he's been great. He's going to be everything that he was drafted to be. So despite that week 1 panic, it looks really good for Marvin Harrison. Let's take a quick break. We come back. We'll run through some more of these rookie pass catchers, and before we get into Nate's hipster picks right after this. All right, we're back. Next rookie in terms of receiving yards it's actually 2 guys we're going to save in terms of wide receivers. We're saving Ladd for later on, and we already talked Rome Odunze. Right behind them, 154 yards on 9 catches, of course, is Xavier Worthy. Obviously, Rashee Rice, we somehow still don't know like how much time he's going to miss. The game, we're taping this on Wednesday. The game wrapped up on freaking Sunday. And I guess he's going to get 50 different opinions before we find out what's wrong with him. So
when we move him to IR, come on.
God, you should tweet that at Yahoo Fantasy several times. I've heard, a couple times a day. You should do that.
I've already ragged on Andy Reid's play designs this week, and now I want to rag on the IR system of my boss.
like I said, just do that. Just tweet it. Just tweet at him. That'll move the needle. Ask people on social media. It always works. Okay, Xavier Worthy. He's not going to replace what Rashee Rice does in this offense. Like they can maybe get him on more of those like the mesh concepts they do and stuff like that, more of those crossing routes than let him run, but he does not have the physicality to do that. And so far, Nate, what we've seen out of Worthy the first 4 games is it's a lot of clear out stuff. It's a lot of vertical routes and not a real deal big boy route tree. So I don't know how I feel about Worthy rest of season from a fantasy perspective, because they're definitely going to design things for him, and shoot, he can run a go route against like quarters coverage and rip the safeties like he did, which are, we talk about somebody that can do that. Worthy can do that. Mahomes can do that. Those are going to happen. But like in terms of base routes and kind of that typical let's move the offense, I don't really know where Xavier Worthy fits there, based on both his college profile and what I've seen so far in the NFL.
Well, yeah, he was brought in to open things up for everybody else, on top of, you challenge deep every once in a while, like they did last week, hitting them deep, where he finally broke 20 miles an hour for the first time in his career.
There we go.
But the fastest guy ever, he can barely break 20. But what you said, it's not a 1-to-1 with Rice. Rice is so much better with the ball in his hands just by size. Is explosive, makes guys miss, breaks tackles. Worthy is has to be off the ball, has to be in motion, has to be, so much of his stuff has to be designed. And, that's why he gets the end arounds and the bootleg stuff. He's not a gadget player.
No.
It's just that his stuff is designed. And shoot, I might send this to Colin as well. His target chart, or his route chart, it's like the big plays are, he has an interception where he got swallowed up against the Bengals, where he ran a wheel route. He has a touchdown on a broken coverage on a wheel route. He has the deep post, and then all of his other targets are to the right and under 5 yards, because that were flats, crossing routes, those types of things. It's going to be crossing routes and bombs. That's this guy. That's how he has to win in the NFL. He's not going to be attacking over the middle. He's not going to be. That's Rashee Rice's role. That's Travis Kelce's role. Maybe they have to, start ramping him up a little bit.
Yeah. They're going to have to, the ramp up plan for Kelce was maybe December, and we're going to have to put that into overdrive here in October.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't have a big Thanksgiving, before, I know, stay away from Halloween candy. But they have to, because I think Worthy has done his role. Mm-hmm. It's just that in a football sense, but the stats I don't think will ever be there for him, because it's going to be just so to catch, hoping for one bomb kind of thing. He's not a innings eater. He's not a quantity guy. Yeah. It's just bombs and underneath stuff. That's what he's going to be. I hate to sound like this guy's month, and it's physically impossible for him to do other things. Like it's just the size. So I just want people to have expectations to go, oh yeah, he'll do the same role as a guy that's 6'2", 208, and can also run really fast. So that's just something right there.
Yeah, I mean, even a guy like what Tank Dell did as a rookie, he's not. I don't think he can do that, because he's just not the same type of athlete. Like
that was like a really good route runner. So
totally. Like he's definitely more of a real receiver than your typical speedy gadget guy. Always said that about Xavier Worthy. So, but if I guess the one silver lining is that you have to design stuff for Kelce. You had to design stuff for Rice. Like that made Xavier Worthy third in the pecking order there in terms of designing stuff. Well, now he's up in the pecking order, so he'll definitely be more productive than he would have been. But I still agree with you that they really need an innings eater. I don't know where the hell they're going to find that guy, but we'll see. They do need that. Let's move to the guy that the Bills took after everyone said after week one, how could you let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy? They came back and took Keon Coleman. I'm going to try to be nice about this, because this isn't so much of a Keon Coleman thing, but honestly, Nate, when I watched Keon Coleman as a prospect, I thought, man, I know the exact way I wouldn't want to see him used in the NFL. And then I'm watching the film like just before we got on here. I'm like, this is exactly the way I didn't want to see him used in the NFL, was what the Buffalo Bills are doing with him. And I get it. You want this, and he's good at this stuff. You want him to be the ball winner on the outside, but that just leaves so much meat on the bone. And you've seen that so far in the way he's produced. It's been very volatile. Obviously, he hasn't even had like a big, massive game yet, but we've got games of 5, 1, 1, 4 targets. Like he's never going to be an 8+ target getter when he's playing at the level that he's playing at right now and in the role that he's playing in right now. So, I'm not very optimistic about Coleman from a rest of season perspective. If he remains in this, like he just almost never gets any slot reps really. And he's almost always on the ball as the boundary X receiver. I'm not saying he's like pure sacrificial X, because he's not, because they will throw him those jump balls, but it's definitely, it's going to be very inefficient and low volume. That's for sure with Keon Coleman.
3 slot snaps from the slot.
3. And I get it. Again, I get it. They've got they've got Khalil Shakir, and he's a baller. We've talked about him.
Kincaid,
and they're going to ramp up Curtis Samuel. I'm kind of at, look, the Mac Hollins stuff, like, it's kind of enough already with the Mac Hollins stuff. We get it. Like, we need to see more of a dude that can actually get over. I'll actually make this point about the trick play, the Curtis Samuel trick play, which was a disaster of a play,
which is memed. Yeah,
which is memed. But like, I just watched this game back on film. Nate Wiggins, by the way, definitely won that rookie matchup between him and Keon Coleman. He was great
good
at
for
game.
Wiggins.
But specifically watching that play, like, it was a stupid play. I totally get it. They, like, Samuel pitches it back to Josh Allen, and there's only two dudes out in the route. It's Keon Coleman and it's Mac Hollins, and neither one of them they have not turned around yet. They're just running into these zones, and especially Coleman is kind of like moving slow down that field, man. And like and then that's when Josh hitches up, and then he gets obviously strip sacked and then crushed. So like, even though the play was probably stupid to begin with, it's like, Coleman, brother, turn around. Like, and you could tell Josh is looking at him, and he's just, it was a disaster. So that's sort of my, and Mac Hollins on the other side, that's not even like an option. So, I mean, I'm kind of at enough already with the Mac Hollins stuff. I don't know if Coleman's ever going to be a high volume target getter in this particular role. So a little bit concerning if you want him to be a productive player.
Yeah, I don't think the 3 snaps from the slot, and I know you had the idea too, with like, power slot stuff, and that's where I thought he would just get, peppered more on the inside, like, in just those, like, he's supposed to be a ball winner, but I thought he was just going to be this big zone beating body. Like, if you picture some concepts, like, usually they have that like 5-6 yard hitch route in the slot, snag, all these other routes, but concepts. But I thought that that's him. So Kincaid, maybe it goes vertical, and then they're inversing the roles. Remember, we were talking about Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown? That's how I pictured it in my head, where it's like they're inversing the routes that you typically see from these two. And so far, shoot, I mean, look at his route tree. It's just like, it's vertical, vertical. Even his targets are all that. And not vertical in the sense, like, that's a difference too. Vertical can be under 20 yards or down the field. It's just a vertically attacking route, I should say. And I feel like he's getting pigeonholed. Mac Hollins, this is the exact same thing that happened with the Falcons last year. It was like, oh man, you really can't give us a lot of good reps outside of blocking.
No.
And special teams, he's not winning one-on-ones. And I
mean, dude, Hollins has 23 of his routes from the slot so far. Like, he's done more of that. You got to switch. If you're going to keep Mac Hollins on the field, you got to switch that up.
You got to switch it up. And and it's a simple fix. And maybe, I think Keon Coleman, maybe some of the things is how quickly he learns an NFL playbook and everything. So maybe they're keeping it simple for him. And that's my other side that maybe I'll argue is, again, maybe he's a post-buy booster where they're like, okay, now he can pick that up. So that would be my one thing. He got suspended for a quarter for violating team rules. So so that's kind of, and they usually don't do that unless you have a couple warnings. So that kind of signifies some things reading between the lines. I know they like him though.
Yeah.
And his personality is just hilarious. I think he's trying to do the right thing. I think just he's swimming a little bit. And I want to see him as the season goes along. Still like him. It's just that they haven't crystallized his role yet. So
I think that's it. I like him too. I think he's a good ball winner, and I really do think he could be further maximized in a different role. This isn't really so much Keon Coleman criticism as it's just I don't love the way he's being used. So they have a week 12 bye. Maybe that's when we see. It's tough. Like, maybe that's when we see him get ramped up. I know. And I really do think they've got to play Samuel more, because they just don't have a lot of dudes who could beat man coverage. When the Ravens went to man coverage, they were just so bad. The Bills were effed in that point. So would love to see more of that from them. You mentioned rookies swimming. You said that about A.D. Mitchell. So I want you to kind of explain what you mean when you say that, because like when you look at I think the film of A.D. Mitchell, you see him run some great routes. You see him get open against man coverage. But what do you think has kind of made it so far that, I mean, Mitchell was playing a lot the first couple weeks. Josh Downs gets back, and they just completely took him off the field. Yeah,
Downs, as you can tell, they are like, oh, okay, you're our safety net.
Well, Downs is a freaking baller. He is a reception perception gem for sure. So
he might just run one route. That slow choice route, and he's so good at it. But if you catch everything and you get to the right spot, quarterbacks are going to find you. And with Mitchell, it's The Packers game stood out to me where it felt like he was swimming. There's a ball earlier. Richardson threw it pretty a little hot, but AD Mitchell doesn't even have his head around. And usually when you don't get your head around early, you're counting your steps, meaning the coach has been like, hey, make sure you get your depth here. Make sure you get third step outside. Make sure you get to 12, 14 yards. And that game in particular, he had another one where he dropped a stop route, wins on the route. Like, whoa, I mean, the corner's so threatened by his vertical speed, wins on it, creates space. But you can tell when he comes out of the route, he's like, okay, I got to there. All right, sink. All right, now, okay, get your hands up. And then the ball just hits him in the chest because he's thinking and he's trying to, he's not playing. And again, him and Brian Thomas were guys that I figured would take some time. Thomas has just been like, hit the ground running. But Mitchell, he looks like a classic rookie receiver coming from college that maybe is like, now, hey, we're going to try this with you. We're going to try this with you. And maybe he just got overwhelmed with it. Confidence is a hell of a thing too. It doesn't help when you're, okay, I did the right route. Oh, now I dropped it. Like that's tough for any human being. So especially for a guy that I feel like he can kind of be like that. He can be hot and cold. So I just think he had a cold start with his head, a couple of easy plays that he didn't get to pick up his confidence. Doesn't help. Like Richardson tries to throw a hero ball to him and ends up being knocked away or intercepted because Mitchell kind of stops on it. So I just think it's a lot of him like trying to do the right thing. And just like, I think he's just like, oh man, that's not good because he didn't get those easy catches to build up the confidence. So,
and even the plays where he's gotten wide open too, Richardson has not been able to get him the ball too. So, and that would be a great confidence builder. I feel like listening to you kind of go through this and just watching, him play, I feel like in time he's going to be a really good player, but I don't know when that's going to be this year. And just obviously we got to get Richardson to play a little bit better, to get all of these Colts receivers activated.
To be on the field would help too.
Also being on the field consistently would help. And obviously today he did not practice. So we'll see with the Colts receivers. Last pass catcher I want to talk about, and we can be quick on this because like he's good. Brock Bowers.
He's good. Yeah.
Brock Bowers might be
for him.
Brock Bowers might be the second best tight end in fantasy as a rookie right now.
Yeah, they're running jet sweeps for him. That means you're the best player on the field for us, and he's a rookie tight end in his first month. He looks exactly how he looked in college. You guys can't keep up with him. He's so fast. And even coming out of college, he was 50-50 slot receiver tight end, and like he can win he wins against DBs already. Like he was winning against Ravens DBs, and so that's the sign. Like Laporta was able to do it as a rookie. So you're like, oh, okay, we can do this, this, and this with you. Bowers is like, what can't we do with you? He is not swimming. He is the opposite. He is flourishing, mentally swimming. Well, I guess swimming, it could be a good thing there, but mentally swimming. No, he looks great. He's good. Fantastic. Sticky, whatever. It's just about health for him, just staying healthy because he's the legit like star at the position.
Only thing I would say is obviously we have a lot of Devontae Adams trade rumors right now. He didn't request a trade, but he would prefer to be traded with Devontae Adams. We'll see. Honestly,
it's a quarterbacks he's played with before.
Right, exactly. I thought about like, hey, maybe Nate and I could theorize some Devontae Adams landings. I almost am like, I'm so snake bit by what happened in the offseason with receiver trades that like I'll talk about it when/if it happens. I would just note that if Adams does get moved, I'm a little like it's raising my eyebrows at the Raiders offense because they sure as hell can't run the ball. And if Adams is not out there, they don't really have a coverage dictator anymore. And so much of what Bowers was able to do in those first 2 weeks when he was really productive was he was kind of running those option routes underneath. He was like the quick layup route guy, whereas Adams was take the top off. And we know that Adams dictates coverage over there. So he's taking a safety with him. You're seeing a lot of too high stuff. Bowers could eat in that situation. If Adams gets removed, then it's like Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. It doesn't feel quite the same. But
oh my God.
But regardless, I think that Bowers is still like a top. I have him right now rest of the season, my second tight end, and certainly somebody like dynasty wise, I think is probably the tight end one.
Yeah, missed him on every freaking league too. I was so mad. Trey. Sorry, you said Trey Tucker, and I felt like every time I peeked up at that Raiders game, I just saw Trey Tucker doing something. Trey Tucker, how many snaps did he have last week? Yeah, Trey Tucker had 50. Trey Tucker's had 102 snaps the last 2 weeks. Yeah, that's not. You don't want Trey Tucker reps, even though he's been pretty productive in them. That's kind of the DeAndre Carter reps. Trey Tucker though is actually, because I love these next gen stats. I look up now, so I always just look who's the fastest player in the NFL.
He's got wheels.
He's legitimately one of the fastest players in the NFL. Him and my guy Schooler, the special teamer for the Patriots, is like the fastest guy in the NFL, like legitimately, which is so funny to me. But no, they're on the Trey Tucker reps, so that's kind of all I need to kind of leave it at, even if he is explosive.
Yeah, he can fly, and yet he had a 5.7 average depth of target in week 4. That's all you need to know about what's going on in the Raiders offense. Okay, before we take one final break and get to saying the quiet part out loud and Thursday night preview, Nate, any hipster rookies you want to hit the people with that we haven't mentioned?
Oh, man. I'm glad we got Bowers. Blocking tight end for the Seahawks got some love this last week. AJ Barner, good player. And 3 down tight end, and I think they're just going to find more reps for him. I think they want more tight ends in the field that aren't Pharaoh Brown, who's a good blocker himself. But Barner, long term, might have something to him. Might be like an efficient kind of receiver. Maybe he can get to that Schultz level in his career as a receiver, but I think a better blocker than Schultz. So, no, I'm pretty optimistic about Barner, especially what he put together in week 4. Jordan Whittington from the Rams has been doing a very nice job. Again, don't know if the production will ever be there for him. He always going to feel like an auxiliary player, but he is a good, just real football player.
Let me tell you what, buddy. They used him in the crossing routes and all that, like typical Rams receiver. Yeah, I joke about there is no Puka Nacua role, and there's not, but he was using him on the Puka routes at least.
Yeah, the same blocks too, same motions, everything. Yeah, it's the Puka role, which was the Robert Woods role. It just kind of keeps transitioning through, but he's a good football player. I just don't know what his upside is, but I just want to give him a shout out. Another one is Theo Johnson with the Giants, tight end. Again, we're talking more dynasty here.
Totally.
But they're trying to get him on the field. And they're trying to get him reps, trying to get him touchdowns, trying to do stuff, which again, you have to listen to the coaches sometimes. Sometimes you don't agree with them. I agree with them. I was really high on Theo Johnson coming into this draft. But yeah, they're trying to do stuff for him. So I think, again, he's a guy long-term could become something. And then if we want to go real hipster, Zach Frazier, center for the Steelers. J.C. Latham, left tackle for the Titans. Both difference makers for their team already.
I mean, dude, the Steelers need a difference-making offensive lineman, that's for sure. I'll throw out Jalen Polk from the Patriots. He's not like a hipster necessarily because he was a high second-round pick, but he started to get, he ran a route on over 80% of the dropbacks in week 4. They're starting to get him on the field. I don't know how much that's going to matter until we get your boy Drake May out there, because all respect in the world to Jacoby Brissett, but I know what the Jacoby Brissett Patriots I know what he looks like in this offense right now. It's just clearly they need more juice. So unless they're afraid that Drake May is going to get in a literal car accident out there behind that offensive line, it's time. And I think Polk would be a guy that potentially gets a stock up there. One last guy I wanted to ask you about, because he seems to be every fantasy tweeter's favorite guy to check out the routes per dropback on this guy, tight end Eric All from the Bengals.
All from the Bengals. Yeah. Interesting player. And I think they're realizing that Gesicki can only do so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know he's sneaky. They again, you gotta follow the snaps, follow how they're using it, and they're trying to use him more. So they liked him over the summer too, weren't they? Singing his praises too. Mm-hmm. So no, that's a good one. I need to study him because I only watched him for one game, but I want to study him a little bit more. Bengals, that offense is just so it's so efficient. But it's just sometimes just leaves me wanting more.
They've always felt like they needed a tight end presence, though, and he did play 60% of the snaps.
60? Okay.
60% last week. So, and he's had 4 targets and 4 targets and 4 catches in 3 straight games here.
Yep.
After he didn't get any opportunities in week 1. I will just say, honestly, Nate, you say you haven't studied him just yet, but he's an Iowa tight end, and I have not gotten a full scouting report from Andy Behrens. So I know Behrens will never listen to the podcast that he's not on, but Andy, you're on notice, bro. Enough already with the private jets and the palatial estates and rewatching the Olympics from that stuff's over, pal. Get in the film room and tell me what about this Eric All guy.
Yeah, tell us about the Hawkeyes. Well, Jalen Polk, though, glad you brought him up. I will never shut up about Jalen Polk. That he should have had a sweet sideline catch. And I still thought he caught it, which I'm still trying to figure out what the ruling was. I think they said Pereira made it sound like it was so clear and obvious that it was incomplete, but I beg to differ. But I think they're trying to find him. They're realizing we got to get him touches too, because he's always been a good dirty work guy, and as college and now as a pro, I think that's why the Patriots took him. But now it's like, oh yeah, he can win jump balls.
Yeah.
He's actually really good at this stuff. All right, let's chuck it up to him a couple times.
Yeah, they threw him 3 contested passes at least in this past game. And he had 102 air yards on the day. So like he's a guy that it's like if you have space on your roster or something like that, stick him on the end of your bench before the breakout happens. Just like you hopefully had Dontavian Wicks stuck on your bench if you've been listening to this damn show. And now everybody's like, oh, I'm going to the waiver wire. See, Dontavian Wicks is not there. What the hell? He was on your teams already. Definitely do that with Jalen Polk. And hopefully when we get Drake May in there, we'll have something to talk about. Okay, let's take our final break. When we come back, we'll do saying the quiet part out loud, and we'll preview Thursday Night Football right after this. All right, we're back. Nate Tice. This is where we say the quiet part out loud, which is where we just kind of whisper a take that we're thinking, and we're not totally behind it, but like we're kind of behind it. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're going to do here. We both actually have one here, and it's related to rookie wide receivers. I'll go. I'll let you go first because I'm a gracious guy.
I think the Chargers aren't bad. I think they're actually an okay team with a good quarterback. And I don't know. I'm kind of buying their stock right now. I think we're saying other teams are struggling when it's really the Chargers are actually not bad. So I just want to say that I think their defense is actually pretty good, and their offense is coming together, even if I don't like Greg Roman's passing concepts. Yeah. Lad McConkey's real.
Yeah,
he's very real.
You can say that part.
I'll get louder.
Really,
I'll get louder with that one.
Like,
that one's out loud.
The Chargers are pretty good. Greg Roman's offensive coordinator, but like Lad McConkey's really good though.
Whew. Lad's already gone to like defenses are scared. Like defenses are backing off of him as he attacks vertically. He is good. Very fast, good route runner, which we knew. But make him play in the red zone. I mean, that catch and throw was so cool. Catch and throw by Herbert and Lad. But also on that series before, Lad had a little catch and run, caught it in the flat, and ran literally ran a circle around the Drew Tranquil before he got vertical. And that's real NFL speed. So he's real. I know redraft leagues, take him, find him. I tried to trade in a dynasty league Devontae Adams for Lad straight up.
Oh, wow.
And the person's not taking it. And
I'm
texting him, trying to go hey, check your trades. So, but I think he's real. I think he's long-term real. And he's already got the trust of Herbert. I brought this up when they played the Panthers. Herbert's pick was because he's locked in on Lad in a scramble drill. He trusts him fully. Quinn Johnson's playing better. Yeah. But I think Lad's going to emerge and already is starting to emerge as the primary guy, with Quentin maybe as being the second guy.
Yeah, it's cool that Johnson's been able to give them what he has, which is great to see. They've used him much better. Obviously, we had that whole discussion. That's the Quentin Johnston whisper was the birth of saying the quiet part out loud this segment. So, but I agree with you. Watching Lad in week 4, it was clear that, especially once Herbert has to go into chaos mode and behind what's left of the Chargers offensive line, he has to go into chaos mode a little bit too much. I'm still stunned with him slamming that helmet against the bench. I've watched a lot of Justin Herbert. I've spent time with Justin Herbert, and he's never been that type of dude. So You could tell he was frustrated, but man, when he is in chaos mode, he's like, okay, where's Lad? Where's 15? Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense. The first read targets coming down for Johnston, because a lot of it was designery stuff, and now it's coming up to Lad McConkey. That's just clearly, again, he's second reaction plays, they're going to Lad. First read plays, they're going to Lad. They do play that Broncos defense coming out of their bye in week 6. That's going to be tough behind that offensive line. But again, maybe second reaction plays, and then they get the Cardinals in week 7. So that could be kind of Lad McConkey's real deal breakout game if that hasn't happened already. Okay, I got a one. I want to whisper here.
For this one.
I think the Panthers are going to hit on Xavier Legette to some degree. I want to say to some degree here. Do I think Xavier Legette's about to be the next superstar receiver in the league? I'm not sure about that. But almost everything I said about Keon Coleman and how damn it, that was exactly how I didn't want to see him be used. I watched Legette in this Bengals game, his first real deal kind of start for this team in the post Adam Thielen world. That's exactly how I wanted to see Xavier Legette get used. A lot of snaps in the slot, snaps from the backfield, 2 rush attempts. Obviously, he's a primary kick returner for them, even though the dynamic kickoff return has basically been whatever, not that dynamic. But shoot, Xavier Legette looks he looks like he'd be a great candidate for that. A couple things about him too. Again, the slot snaps. He's off the line of scrimmage a ton. They're getting him these runway routes. I mean, his routes, I haven't put him in my system, so I've only got I've got the on paper track here. I'm not going to hold this up because that would be
I love this.
State
You're
secrets.
Really a coach.
Yeah, no. This is me, Nate Tice. This is three papers every chart.
I'm this. I got a pad and I got my whiteboard down here. So
yeah, I'm like most of his routes. We got a bunch of slants. We got out routes when he's when he's mostly lined up in the slot or is the off-ball player, the only outside receiver on that side, and he's the off-ball player. And he can get some leverage on those because he's such a big body. And that's another thing. He looks huge. Huge out there, does Xavier Legette. So he's still it's a work in progress against man coverage. It's a work in it might always be, but there were kind of two paths that I envisioned for Legette coming into the league. It was either, kind of the non-gadgety, non-running back stuff for Deebo Samuel's role in like a peak scenario, or he could be Alshon Jeffrey. And if that was if it was going to be good. And he's definitely more towards the Deebo role stuff than the Alshon Jeffrey thing. And there's still a little bit of they wanted to be a vertical ball winner, and he made some mistakes to catch point, things like that. He's a raw player. It's going to be a work in progress. But again, basically the opposite of what I said about Coleman, where man, I'm concerned when is he going to be a consistently productive player in this offense that's kind of rolling right now with Dave Canales and Andy Dalton. I see Legette having weeks, where he's going to put up production. So very encouraged about what I saw from Legette. He's a guy that, again, where's the ceiling? Do I think he's going to be a superstar? I'm not 100% sure, but I think he's very much going to be a useful player for the Panthers right now. And I think there's a world where that might not have happened.
He's not a bust.
He's not a bust.
that is because he had, to me, it was obvious. You just looked at him. If you didn't know any of the auxiliary things, other variables with scouting, just watched him on film, looked at his height and weight, you're like, wow, guy's a monster. And then you start saying, oh, he's a late bloomer. Okay, all right, there's some other things with him. Like why was he a late bloomer? Why couldn't he do all this? But the fact, so that to me, that was red flags with some bust factor. I really liked him because of the tools and stuff. But man, they're using him perfectly, and he's looking good in that. You look at his routes, he feels like he never breaks on a route. So you were talking about runway routes, he literally just gets the move, which is great. This is a young guy. Young receivers are not always going to be Jamar Chase, where they just know how to play the NFL or right away or anything like that, where he was always going to have to be spoon-fed. But it's kind of cool to see him not swimming, not going am I doing this right? It's just playing and running fast and being big and running fast. So yeah.
And honestly, the good thing nice. Too is not a real lot of Mickey Mouse routes either. No screens, only two flat routes, no little whip routes, anything like that. It's the vast majority of his route tree. Again, this is from week 4, my state secrets here on the paper. It's slants and digs and posts, and the digs and the 4 dig post routes that I have him on. 3, I would say, were successful, where if Dalton wants to take that throw, he could have taken it, mostly because big body against zone coverage, like we've talked about.
What you want?
You could put that thing on him, and I think as the hands come together, he's going to be a very useful player for this team.
No, good shout out. Yeah, and it's a lot of out routes too. If I recall correctly. Yeah,
I've got 2 little flat routes and then 6 out routes. And the out routes, one of them he had I think he might have dropped the pass, but it was a good sense of leverage and when to break it. And Dalton trusted him.
I was going to bring up, and this is something I've really been thinking about because, God, who made me think of this? It was a small receiver, but I'll think of it. It's kind of slanderous. That's maybe why my brain's not thinking of it. But they ran the out route. They ran the out route and got swallowed up. Oh, it's Calvin Austin. Got swallowed up because Fields, when the defender was breaking, I bet you Fields literally couldn't see him because it was just, he's so small and he got swallowed up. It's kind of nice to have that big body towards the sideline too. Yeah. Just throw in that general area and we'll be okay. And yeah, I don't know. You're never going to hear me go against having big receivers. So Legette being good is just another check for those variables.
All right, let's stick in the NFC South and let's preview Thursday Night Football here real quick. We've got Bucs at Falcons, 44 projected total right now.
Okay.
Sounds very NFC Southy. The Falcons are actually 1.5 point home favorites, so we'll see. I know you and I are both pretty high on what we've seen from the Bucs so far. So I know we were going to discuss Bucky Irving. Just kind of give me like your thoughts on that offense so far and some of the players here. I will say the passing game is so clean for fantasy. We know what's going on there. So maybe a little bit just any sort of things when the Bucs have the ball.
Yeah, they're trying to have Bucky see the field. I saw some pony personnel with them as well, with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I wish Bucky Irving's run style was in Rachaad White's body. And that's something that's it. He is a good, true running back, good vision, good tempo, understands how to pace it, good, like just knows how to hit the hole. He's just smaller and he plays faster than I maybe even gave him credit for at Oregon. He just doesn't have that extra juice. He is a singles and doubles hitter, but I just wish he was 205 or 208, not sub 200. That sounds like just parsing, but it matters a lot for guys taking hits like that. Those add up through the season. So, I mean, he's already got a hamstring, but I like him. I just think it's never going to be his backfield. He's always going to have to split it. Even if he can take all the touches vision wise and understand them and everything, it's just I don't think his body can handle those many touches. Maybe he can. Kyron Williams can, but kind of. But I think he is a good player. I just don't know if the fantasy will ever get over the top with him because Rachaad White's back there. And even if Rachaad White was gone, I think he's a back that you always split carries with just because you have to physically. Good player though. I really like Bucky Irving because he's always gonna be efficient. He just knows how to set up holes, knows how to get the easy yards. He's not a lot of fat with Bucky Irving.
Yeah,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah, literally. My personal trainer is a Bucs fan, weirdly.
Okay.
And so we were talking about this morning when I was at the gym, and he was like, because I just said, oh, man, yeah, love Bucky Irving. He's like, oh, this guy's really giving us some pop. Like, what's the deal with Bucky Irving? I'm like, really good player. He's just so small, and
that's it.
My personal trainer probably wouldn't mind me saying this, but he's like 5'6", and like, I mean, he's jacked, but he's like a 5'6". He's like, it really bothers me that like, I agree with you. I see this dude on Sunday. I feel like he looks so small, and he's probably like 3 times my size. But very funny story about Bucky Irving.
It's like meeting NBA players. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
So I met Steve Nash, and I'm like, you're my height. Like, you know,
and you're huge. You're pretty big. You're pretty big.
I'm 6'5". Yeah. I think he's an inch shorter than me. But that one. Those blow my mind when I meet NBA players. Not that I've met a ton in my life, but when I have, it's just always like, God, that's right. They're like, you guys are really big in the NBA, huh? It's like, you're really tall.
Okay, so yeah, back to freaking football. Bucky Irving is definitely a dude to have on your rosters. Don't know if he can be anything more than a flex, and honestly, I think his presence has made Rachaad White like a kind of risky flex at this point, because Rachaad White's also not going to go anywhere either, which is going to impede the whole Bucky Irving like full deal breakout here. Just because, man, he's a good receiver and he's a useful player is Rachaad White. So like this backfield is just going to end up being messy is the reality of the situation here. From a props perspective, I think like both of these receivers are interesting, just because a lot of, the Falcons play a good bit of single high coverage, so that could be like a Mike Evans deal, but also they kind of like to go away from Evans when there's the kind of like a good corner matchup, so it could be a Godwin game. I mean, I also think that Godwin, like, he could catch like 8 balls in this game, and his prop is like 6.5, so maybe that's worth
6.5.
Yeah, maybe that's it's still pretty beefy. So I don't know. I don't see a ton there in terms of like props on the Bucs side. Plus Thursday Night Baker. I don't know.
Is that a thing? Thursday Night Baker?
I don't know. It's a thing in my mind.
His first start was that Thursday night game. Remember that?
Yes.
Remember when they played the Jets years ago? Oh my God. He could have been the governor of Ohio like that day. That was insane. Watching that reaction. Yeah, I know. But just even stat wise, I was trying to parse through. He's like, the only one I really like is over Rachaad White receiving yards.
Okay.
I can see him getting them on a screen. This Rams offense. They like those screens with them, and I can see him popping one, especially with the Falcons that will do some simulated, some funky stuff. You catch them going there, and maybe in the red zone as well. So that, like, I was right with you with the Godwin receptions, and I saw 6.5, and I was like,
yeah,
that's not the one I want to like tout on this one. Maybe like Kirk Cousins over completions. would be
Well,
another
so
one
yeah,
too.
I was going to spin this to the Falcons side here, and I like the Kirk Cousins over completions. I think that the Bucs, they play the most zone coverage in the league, which is pretty typical, and they're still like a blitz heavy team. This feels like a Drake London game potentially. We haven't seen like the big Drake London game, but his usage got cranked up, 12 targets last week. We just got to get Kirk like on time and hitting them, and I think he'll be fine. His over under in terms of receptions is 5.5, and I could see him getting peppered in this game for sure.
Yeah,
like a 6-7 catch type game for him, especially coming off 12 targets. He hasn't had that big game. Like big game yet. He's had solid performances, but I would say this could potentially be that type of game for him. I've loved the usage and deployment for London. It just hasn't always been there in the box score.
Kirk is too by the book. It's going to be frustrating. It's so funny, man. I totally get it though. Like the coach in me appreciates Kirk sometimes, but then the evaluator / fan of me always wants to go like, just throw it to your good players like sometimes. But no, Drake London over 5.5 receptions. I actually like that one a lot because again, when you're getting blitzed a lot, there usually two things happens. You're either going to gash them or you're going to throw underneath and get the ball out quick. I see Kirk being more of the get the ball out quick. So I see him like a lot of those slot catches. Like Godwin and London might be very similar, which you see out of these two games, or see out both of them. But a lot of those kind of short 5-6 yard quick out routes, stick routes, those things, because those replace blitzes. So I totally understand the angle as far as more usage. Don't know what the yards carries with that. So as far as I with the other receptions,
that's why I wanted team with the most zone coverage in the league and third highest blitz rate in the league. I did not want to go big plays there for any Falcons. No. But yeah, potentially a lot of catches for Drake London in this game. Anything else for you on this one?
Oh man, Bijan at 62.5 yards. I don't know. Sometimes a big angle of mine, I don't know if I want to tout that one, but a big angle of mine is sometimes when the coaches get ridiculed for something, like Marvin Harrison Jr. Why doesn't he only have one catch in his first game? The coaches just double down and go, yeah, here you go, shove it down your throat. Like, here's all these. So, like, some of me wants to say, like, Kyle Pitts might get hit a little bit, and that's nothing with tape stuff. It's more just the coaches getting embarrassed and going, like, oh, you can't even get him a target. It's like, I don't know if there's a Pitts angle here.
He doesn't have
I don't know.
There's a over under 31.5 yards there for Kyle Pitts.
And that's nothing with what I'm watching on film. That's more just pure human scouting. So like that, God, it's 32.5. Yeah, Colin just even says that feels rich. I agree with that. I know, man, they're baiting me. They were going after me. That's where that angle was right there, or that line, I should say. I know, but it's a tough one. It really is. If I were betting stuff, I'd bet more on Kirk Cousins stuff. Yeah. Because I just think he's going to have a lot of throws and against this defense, because that's the way you kind of attack him anyways.
All right, buddy. I think that's all we got. Once we get to the Kyle Pitts prop bets, that means the show is over. So what
prop bets with no football analysis with it, just purely vibe narrative scouting. Which hey, it might work.
Welcome to betting fantasy analysis. It might work. You never know. All right, buddy. What do you got working on the website that people can check out this week?
I am doing biggest surprises, biggest letdowns from the season so far. So just look for a few quick hitters there. Commanders run game going to be one of them. Commanders offense, I should say in general, will be one of them, and maybe general Jags might be a disappointment, but also I mentioned them yesterday, but I might be doing a breakdown next week. I haven't talked to my editor, but on Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback for LSU, because I am really liking what I'm seeing, and they play Ole Miss next week in a nice nationally televised ranked matchup. So can't wait for him to bomb on national TV. And I love getting just raked over the coals as soon as I say anything about a quarterback, and that was before they play a national game. Even Charles goes, "You really want to do that?" Like, right before they play Ole Miss. All right, like, go for it, buddy. Guess not. Yeah, I know. He's a good player though. He's fun. It's not a good quarterback class. I'm just going to warn you. Some good running backs though. Anyone that's interested in dynasty stuff.
Thank God, since our running back section was like 2 seconds long in this one, we definitely need the running backs. That is for sure. I have
2 running backs with a first round grade. I would say I have 5 with a first or second round grade, or second round or above grade, which is Yay. Yay, running backs.
Thank God. We definitely need that. And yeah, if anybody needs to feel sad over the weekend, definitely check out whatever Nate writes about the Jaguars for the yahoosports.com this week. All right. Again, that is going to do it for us today. Tomorrow, we'll be back, and Andy Behrens better have a full freaking Eric All report on this podcast or he is fired. Andy Behrens and Tara Roberts will join me to preview all of Sunday's Week 5 action. Until then, we're out.